Does it get any better than this? Let's have another applause for the speaker. It's an honor for me to be in a room with so many heroes. It's an honor for me to be a member of Belin United Methodist Church that sponsors our Veterans Luncheon. And I'd like to recognize our staff that's here. If any of the staff that's here, please stand up. I'd like to recognize them right now because they've done a lot of work. Let's give them a round of applause. Of course, we couldn't have this program if it wasn't for the people like Mike Alexander and Mr. Cantrell and the rest of our people here at Belin United Methodist Church. But on behalf of the 2,200 members of Belin United Methodist Church, we welcome you today and we thank you for your service. And this time I'd like to call on Greg Hill for our opening prayer.
Thank you, Charlie. Before I pray, I would like to just say a couple words, if I may. On Saturday, this past Saturday, I was at a meeting at Fort Jackson in Columbia. And Lieutenant General Sheehan, retired Marine, said a few words to us. He is the head of the Military Liaison Committee, working with South Carolina government. And he made some comments that I thought that I'd like to pass along to you. Fort Jackson is the largest basic training site for the Army, and I mean for the total Army. And that's something I think you should be proud of. And he asked the question, what's the major revenue source for the state of South Carolina? What do you think that is? Yeah, everybody in that room said tourism. And everybody in that room are retired military officers. But it's not. Major source of income in the state of South Carolina is military related. And that was a surprise to me. So, as veterans, you continue to serve, but don't be so shy about it. Now, we have an awful lot of military active reserve components here in South Carolina, and they deserve our support as well. So I just wanted to pass those couple things along to you. And you should be proud of the military installations that we have here in South Carolina. So please join me in prayer. O righteous ruler of the universe, we give you thanks for the heritage and hope of our country. On Veterans Day, the 11th day of the 11th month of the 11th hour, our nation will pause for a few moments to honor those who have served our nation and our armed forces. And we take a moment to remember the words of the poem Flanders Fields as we look at the poppies that so many people will wear. Particularly this morning, we want to take time to recognize the veterans who are assembled here from Belin Memorial United Methodist Church. Also those who serve our country, both these who are here and those around the world. We have done so, and those do so, out of a sense of duty and honor, having worked or are now working under an unlimited liability contract to our nation. So it is appropriate for the people of our nation to be grateful and to say thank you. And so we do so today. We thank those who planned this event, those who carry it out, and those who prepare and serve the food. May it nourish our bodies and for our continued service to you. Be with our speakers this day, James Reams, and Lieutenant Colonel Robert Ford. We thank them for their service and for the words that they will speak to us this morning. All this we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
As the senior pastor of this church, I want to take a moment to welcome you to Belin Memorial on this very special day. I've had an incredible life. I've lived 66 years and I can tell you stories, but I do have one regret. My one regret is that I never served in the military. Looking back now, I see who the real heroes are in this country, and it's you. Those of you who've given, and others who gave it all, their very lives. I'm so grateful. And this church appreciates you. Today we salute you. Today we pray to God that there will be others who will follow in your footsteps. I want to thank Charlie Nash for being the impetus behind all this. I want to tell you, Charlie, for all of us, is the greatest cheerleader. He's the greatest cheerleader for this church. He's the greatest cheerleader for this community. But most of all, he is the greatest cheerleader for this country. Thank all of you very much.
Bring in the colors. Please stand. Seated. At this time, we'll have the marching of the flags. And if you're in the Army, Navy, Coast Guard, Air Force, Marines, when your song comes by, start singing, okay? Or when your flag comes by, start singing. So let's turn them loose back there.
veterans to join me up front here, if you would. And as they move quickly to the front, I invite all of you to stand and join us in singing God Bless America.
At this time, Mr. Phil Huck is going to introduce one of our speakers.
When Charlie asked me to do this, I said, Charlie, I wasn't a combatant. I wasn't in combat, but I had an interest in 2 years in the Army, and I'd like to tell a few people about it. Before I graduated from Luncheon, I was sworn in as a second lieutenant in the United States Army Reserve, committed myself for 6 years, 2 years active duty. I got my orders before I got my diploma, and I reported to Fort Belin, Virginia, in the January of 1954. I have two distinct memories about my time at Fort Belin. 3 months, like going back to college. One was a British sergeant major came around the corner of a building and snapped to attention and threw me the most striking salute I'd ever seen in my life. It startled me, and I finally returned the salute and said, "Thank you." The other memory is the class the colonel was teaching, and he said, "The problem is put up a flagpole." And all of these young lieutenants, and there were a lot of them, were all college engineering graduates at me. And they went through this all very elaborate explanation. Finally, the colonel said, "You're all wrong." Somebody said, "Well, what's the answer, Colonel?" He said, "Sergeant, put up the flag." I'll tell you, that statement carried me through the Army. Because when I reported to Fort Riley, Kansas in April, I was assigned as a platoon leader in H&S Service Company Heavy Equipment Platoon. I really didn't have much to do down there. Colonel would have me go lead calisthenics every once in a while. But it was, if I got bored, I'd crank the D7 tractor and go over the night and push dirt around. But anyway, after a while, I was summoned to the battalion commander's office one day. And he said, "That is, Lieutenant, you are assigned as company commander of A Company, 39th Engineer Combat Battalion." And we were captain's pool. And I walked out of that office thinking, what am I going to do? I'm a young second lieutenant, don't know anything about running a company. But I went through the process of inventory and equipment, taking over command. Like the first day, we had 2 master sergeants. One, we only authorized one. One was named Sergeant Dronay. He was from Louisiana, and he was a career master sergeant. We had another one that was named Sergeant Nelson. First time I ever saw Sergeant Nelson, he pulled up in a Volkswagen Beetle, and it was sitting like that. When he got out, it looked like that. But anyway, Sergeant Dronay said, "Lieutenant, can we have a word with you?" By all means. Closed the door. He said, "Lieutenant, you present a good image of a young second lieutenant, but you don't know how to run this company." I said, "You're absolutely right, Sergeant. This company was a real bad company. I mean, they had people going AWOL all the time. Indians that you never knew where they were." He said, "If you'll listen to Sergeant Nelson and I, we'll straighten out this company." I said, you got to do it." He said, "You'll never embarrass you." 3 months we had the best company on the coast. After a while, we got an influx of captains, and I reverted to the company executive officer. We had a cadre going to White Sands, New Mexico on a secret mission, and I asked to go, but I wasn't allowed to because I had less than an army left in the year. But anyway, later on, battalion commander changed again. We had a young lady who was really a handsome guy. He called me from the office and said, "You've been assigned to go to Camp Desert Rock Nevada to a witness an atomic bomb explosion." So you've been gone about 10 days. We ended up staying 6 weeks. Every time we go out in the desert, the winds weren't right, and the bomb was on a 125-foot tower. And finally one night we went out and they said, "Okay, we're going to do it." And I was in a trench at 3,500 yards. I was hunkered down like this, and the bomb was down that way. When that bomb went off, the ground shook like a little fishing boat going across a motorboat's way. And when they finally said you could get I turned around, there was a yucca bush about 10 yards behind the trench, and it was just silvered. It was just scorched. I looked up at that cloud, and it was a huge cloud. It was way beyond me. And after a few minutes, they had men in white, all kind of white clothing, and guys were coming driving around the Jeep, checking things, and said, "You can go into this area or that area." And the thing that impressed me the most, and all of you know, was what the size of a 155mm 7-pound gun is. It had the pads down, but it was pushed back about 10 yards from that bomb. In the civilian area, the telephone poles were snapped like toothpicks. Houses were just demolished. And I was so glad to get back to Fort Riley. And the best thing I got from the Army is sitting right there. He has 2 Purple Hearts. One time he was put in a body bag. They saw his toes moving, so they got him out. He was affected by Agent Orange, and he still has the effects of that today. He's my friend, Sergeant Jim Reeves.
He misspoke. He introduced me as sergeant. I got out of that respectful. I didn't make it back from Vietnam as a sergeant. I did. I was a sergeant for about not quite 30 days. First of all, how many 25th Infantry Division people are in here? Are there any? There. I was with the 340 CAD, attached to the 25th. We had our own mechanized unit, as you probably know, if you were there in 69, 68, and we had air cab. We had it all, basically. But before I get into Vietnam, Bill told me I would talk about Bishopville. We always know who came from Bishopville, besides me. Do we have anyone else from Bishopville here? Yeah, Jim? Yeah. We got 3 good boys here. Well, 2. No, Mike and I grew up together in that little town, and it was a special place. It still has fond memories. I get choked up about it sometimes. I can't do it. Mike wasn't like he is now. He was better. When I wasn't trying to court him, he was. Even though he was 2 years younger than I was. But Bishopville was a small, typical little southern town that had a lot of good people. A lot. We were country. Well, we were God first and country second. I went to Bishopville High School. I didn't do very well. I was a little rambunctious, to say the least. Mike might say something about that. But I used to go home after football practice in Bishopville, and I would turn on the news, and all you could hear and see was Vietnam. It captivated me. I just couldn't get away from it. And I wasn't really ready for college. I didn't study that well. I didn't prepare myself. So Uncle Sam said, come see me. As a lot of y'all probably did. I got to stay out an extra 3 months before I was supposed to be drafted, because I was enlisting to get the extra 3 months because I had a little girlfriend I was crazy about. I thought she was crazy about me, but it didn't turn out so good. But anyway, I joined and I enlisted. I went to Fort Jackson, I did my basic training, and I had a friend this morning tell me that he went on tour over there not long ago, and said the old wooden barracks that I was in was still there, but they were using them as storage buildings. So I presumed everything's brick and mortar now. My fond memories of Fort Jackson, if you want to call them fond memories, was Tank Hill. It was a real steep hill. Did anybody go to Fort Jackson? Well, then you remember Tank Hill then, don't you? Well, I saw a lot of guys get their legs broke, arms, whatever. They made us run up and down that hill till you dropped. And the other thing I remember so well was those forced marches we did. I don't know if you guys did, but I did. Didn't know where I was gonna end up at. So after Fort Jackson, they sent me straight to Fort Knox. Didn't know what I wanted to do as far as the military, as far as what part of the service I wanted to do, as far as the infantry, the armor, or whatever, supply. I ended up in reconnaissance of all things. That was a trip. But I didn't know how good it was until I got to Vietnam. But anyway, I spent my time at Fort Knox. I learned how to drive a tank, personnel carrier. And I ended up in Vietnam, January of '69, and ended up in the 3/4 Cav, which is the 4th Cavalry, the 3rd Squadron, and I was in B Troop. The first thing I did was have a week's training, jungle training, because I just left Fort Knox in the mountains at 0-degree weather with 3 layers of clothes on, and they thought we should be prepared for all this stuff in Vietnam. And I said, you guys got to be crazy. But anyway, the second week I was there, they shipped me to the field. And what I meant by the field, the jungle. The first thing I saw was a dead person in the middle of the road, and nobody would do anything about it. And I asked, I said, why don't somebody stop and pick this body up? Well, they were scared to stop and pick it up because they thought it was booby trapped, which they had the VC and the Viet Cong or North Vietnamese, they were good at that. Well, things went on. March the 2nd, that's when I was wounded the first time. It wasn't severe wounds neither. But I really had a gut check about life. And it really made me think where I was at and what I wanted to do with my life. I prayed every day that I'd come home. The good Lord let me come home. May the 3rd, I was wounded again. And it was a little more severe. They shipped me out to Japan to get well. Well, the Army needing soldiers, if you get your wounds well, healed up, back to Vietnam you would go unless they were real severe. If you lost a limb or something like that. Well, they shipped me back. And I said, gee, man, 2 times? 3rd time might not be so good. Because I was basically in the field all the time. Said we'd come in at base camp, and I don't know if any of you guys remember Cu Chi. That was my base camp. You probably know where the 3/4 Cav was then. We would come in for 3 days so we could get the tanks. We had those old big lugging 48s. Y'all remember those? And then about, I guess it was 2 months after I was there, they came out with a new Sheridan tank. And they were supposed to be lightweight, a little thinner armor and all. They were a death trap, in my opinion. But anyway, after the second time getting wounded, my brother shows up in Vietnam. I said, what in the world are you doing here? Just got out of the hospital, just got back in the Cu Chi. from Japan, and here he is. Now he's my little brother. I said, what in the world am I going to do with you? And he was gung-ho and wanted to run to the front lines and do this and do that. And believe it or not, he and I had a very difficult conversation. Anyway, he looked up. I found out that I had a cousin down at the 25th Maintenance Division of the 25th. He was Battalion XO. Guess what? He gets to be the Jeep driver. I said, well, how about me? I've been wounded twice. Can I get this job? He said, I'm going to go down there and I'm going to be the Jeep driver. I said, this isn't right. Anyway, I stayed in Vietnam for a little over 10 months, and they finally said, Mr. Raines, you've really had more hours than we thought you had in the hospital, so I think if you want to, we'll send you home. I said, hallelujah. I said, I'm ready. It took me about 5 minutes to get my bags packed, and about 2 minutes to get over to the airfield. And I came home. I never forgot though, I made a promise to the good Lord above. If He let me come home, what I could do. Now, no, I wasn't perfect. I was a little rambunctious as I was in high school. But I didn't do anything real bad. So y'all don't get the wrong idea. But I had a good time. And I finally went in business for myself and stayed in business for about 20 years. And I came down here. And I came to this church. It was the best thing that I ever did. There are such wonderful people in this church. And I have grown and learned to love so many people and appreciate what humanity has for us. As bad as we got spat on, cursed out, shunned, and whatever, as Vietnam veterans, I'm here to tell you, you guys are the best. And you deserve more than you ever will get for fighting for something that we all loved, and that was this country and our freedom. And for those that didn't do that and wanted to skip, you gave them that right. Like the guys that are volunteering and the girls that are volunteering today. For those that sit on the sidelines and kneel. And I heard today that somebody in California wanted to do away with the anthem altogether. What a shame. But we still, as a country, the greatest country in the world, and we have the greatest people in the world. And I believe in my heart of hearts, it's just that small group that doesn't appreciate the freedom that they have. But you do, and that's what's so important. So you can tell them what it means to you and maybe convince them otherwise. I want to close by reading a poem. This poem was given to me by a fellow soldier that was in the hospital with me. And I've kept this poem over all these years. It's a GI protest. Take a man and leave him alone, put him 18,000 miles from home. Empty his heart of all but blood, make him live in sweat and mud. This is the life I have lived, and why my soul to God I give. You peace boys can rise from your easy chair. But you can't see life through your easy chair. You'll have a ball without your trying, while in Vietnam our boys are dying. To all of you is banned the bomb. There is no war in Vietnam. Use your drugs and have your fun, but you refuse to live the gun. There's nothing else for you to do, and I'm supposed to die for you. I'll hate you till I die. You made me hear my buddy cry. I saw his arm shredded. I heard him say, this one's dead. It's quite a price he had to pay, not to live another day. He paid the price, but what did he buy? He bought your life, I give you. But okay, here's a damn. What a soldier is. This guy died 3 days later. But he died doing what so many of you do. You gave your sweat and blood for his country. And I'm so proud of you and myself for doing what was right, what you love, and that's this country. Thank you.
You ask me why I love her. I'll give you time. I'll explain. You see the Kansas sunset or the Arizona rain? Have you drifted on a bayou down Louisiana way? You watched the cold fog drifting over San Francisco Bay? Have you heard about white calling in the Carolina pines? Or heard the bellow of a diesel in the Appalachian mines? Is the call of the Niagara thrill you when you hear her waters roar? You look with awe and wonder at the Massachusetts shore where men who braved a hard new world first stepped on Plymouth Rock. Did you think of them when you stroll along a New York City dock? Have you seen a snowflake drifting in the Rockies way up high? Have you seen the sun come blazing down from a bright Nevada sky? You hail to the Columbia as you rush into the sea, or are you headed Gettysburg, our struggle to be free? Have you seen the mighty Tetons? You watched an eagle soar? Have you seen the Mississippi roll along Missouri's shore? Have you felt a chill at Michigan when on a winter's day their waters rage along the shore in thunderous display? Does the word aloha make you warm? You stare in disbelief when you see the surf come roaring in at Waimea Reef. From Alaska's cold to the Everglades, from the Rio Grande to Maine, my heart cries out, my pulse runs fast, the might for
speaker will be introduced by Senator Stephen Goldfinch.
Good afternoon. It is my distinct honor today to recognize our next speaker, Blake Ford. Blake graduated from the Citadel class of 1989 and completed his MBA from the University of South Carolina in 2013. After the Citadel, he spent 21 years in the U.S. Marine Corps and retired as Lieutenant Colonel in 2010. His primary skill set was as a Cobra pilot. He specialized in close air support and night attack. Blake graduated from Marine Aviation Weapons Tactics Squadron 1 as a weapons and tactics instructor, and he held every flight leadership designation available during his career. Blake was also a forward air controller with the 3rd LAR Battalion in 29 Palms, California. Blake was based at Camp Pendleton, 29 Palms, Vance Air Force Base, Camp Lejeune, and Marine Corps Air Station Yuma in Arizona during his career. Blake completed 5 operational deployments overseas to include combat operations in Somalia in 1993, Iraq in 2004, 2006, and 2007. 3 of his deployments were aboard amphibious shipping as part of a Marine Expeditionary Unit. Blake also served with the U.S. Air Force as a T-37 instructor pilot from 1998 to 2001 at Vance. Blake finished his career as the commanding officer of Headquarters and Headquarters Squadron, Marine Corps Air Station Yuma. He currently works in business aviation. He has amassed over 6,500 mishap-free flying hours, which is significantly better than me, by the way. I've crashed 3 times with only 500 hours, so that tells you a little bit. So don't get in an airplane with me. Okay. He has experience in helicopters, turboprops, and jet aircraft. Blake's been married for 26 years to Lori Lovett Ford of Camden. Is Lori here today, Blake? Okay. He's the proud father of 3 children, Blake, Jackson, and Margaret. Blake's wife and children supported, this is what I like the best about Blake's bio, by the way. Blake's wife and children supported 3 combat tours of duty overseas while living in Camp Lejeune, and they never once complained. They, like many other supporting families, and like you in here, served their country very well during difficult times. It is my distinct pleasure today to welcome Lieutenant Colonel Blake Ford.
Senator Goldfinch, Mr. Charlie Nash, Colonel Hill, and Dr. Alexander, and also James. Thank you so much for having me here today. To my veterans, my fellow veterans, and their families, I'm extremely honored to spend this day with you. There's really 3 highlights that I'd like to discuss today. One is I'd like to remember. I'd also like to talk about why I went into the Marine Corps, because I think we all have a similar experience, whether you volunteered or whether you were voluntold, which many of you were. And then in the end, I'd like to issue maybe a small challenge for all of us, certainly to include myself, areas where we may be able to reach out to our fellow veterans or just friends and help them along. First of all, Veterans Day, this coming Saturday, November 11th, we know that it comes from Armistice Day, back in 1918, at the end of World War I. That war was characterized as a war to end all wars. There's also a very good book written about World War I. It's called A Peace to End All Peace. As we sit here today, we can look back on history, far back to World War II, and then our present history in Afghanistan and Iraq. And we understand that history continually repeats itself, and we still need and ask men and women
do the hard work that our country requires. It is fitting for us to come together on a day like today and remember and celebrate patriotism, service above self, and what I think we all enjoy during our service, whether it's in the military or in this community, is being a part of something that's larger than ourselves. And so today we remember those friends. For me, Nate Anderson, Tom Rodrigo, Jeremy Bloomfield, Captain Martino, all of them gave their lives. Not each of them was in combat. Some were in training, because we train like we fight, and training is difficult. So why do men and women join the armed services? Why do men and women join fantastic churches like where we're at today? Why do they join their professional organizations? For me, I could best sum it up in the advice that my father gave me when I went to him and I asked him about the United States Marine Corps. My dad was a sergeant in the United States Marine Corps Reserves in Columbia, South Carolina. He served during Vietnam, but he never had to go, and he thanked his lucky stars every day that he didn't have to go. I went to my dad one time. My parents, Senator Goldfinch mentioned that I went to the Citadel. About the time I was leaving for the Citadel, my parents had just finished a nice small pool kind of in the backyard. And I don't think it was a coincidence that they were building a pool and I was getting the heck out of town. But my brother and sister got to enjoy it. But I went to my dad one evening and I said, Dad, I've met some other cadets that are doing the Marine Corps. I think I'd like to do it. I think I can do it. And really, what do you think? And my dad didn't miss a beat. He started putting rounds right on target. And he said, I'll tell you exactly what I think, Blake. He said, if you are to be a United States Marine and you want to compete in that environment, he goes, some bad things can happen, and there's also some good things. He said, the bad things, you could get extremely hurt, or you could lose your life. And he said, your mother and I would be devastated. But he said, Blake, there's a tremendous upside. And I said, I'm all ears. And he said, Blake, if you can become a United States Marine and join the United States military, he said, you are going to be introduced to people that are smarter than you are, that are harder working than you are, and in essence, better than you are. And if you can compete with them, if you can become one of them, you will bring yourself up. And I think that's an experience that all of us hold, again, whether we volunteered or we were voluntold. And we also find that in the business community, and we find that in our civic organizations, that what it's about is bringing yourself up. And the way you do that is to surround yourself with people that are better than you are. I found out that really all of them were smarter than I was. But in competing with them, I became a better person. I'm a better person for being here today. Another reason we're able to do well, I think, in the military is obviously our families. Our families often go underappreciated. Senator Goldfinch alluded to mine. I can remember talking to my wife, Lori, though I retired as a lieutenant colonel, her rank is outranked mine. She's the commander-in-chief of our household. And I take directions from her regularly. As a matter of fact, I mentioned this morning that I was coming down to Murrells Inlet, and she said, well, you're excited, I can tell that. And I said, I'm going to go down there and meet some good people. And I said, there's going to be food, too. I said, Marines like food. Can't ever get enough of it. But she reminded me before I left, she said, don't forget the trash has got to go out today. So I got that done before I left Columbia. But I will never forget Lori. At the time, we were in Little Creek, Virginia. This was about kind of midway, 2/3 of the way through my career, and Iraq had started. And I had the opportunity to go to a kind of a different duty station, more administrative in nature, but I felt like I could see my friends were going overseas. And at this time, we had 3 small children. And seeing my friends go overseas while I was sitting in Virginia Beach made me feel about this big. Lori, and I said, hey, I'd really like to go back and get in the Cobra and go with my friends. And what Lori said is, if it's important to you, it's important to us. And I will never forget my wife telling me that. One other thing with my family, coming back, at the time, I had gone over in 2004, and Lori and I both are from Camden, South Carolina. Lori's a year older than me. At the time, she was going back for her 20th year reunion in Camden, South Carolina. And she took our 3 children, and she kind of relayed this to me when I got back. So she's there at this high school reunion, and on one of the days, they had kind of a family day where they brought the kids out and they were having a picnic and stuff. And one of our friends walked by and saw Lori and kind of said out loud, "Hey, where's Blake? Where's your dad?" And all 3 of my kids said, "He's over fighting the bad guys." And so I knew when she related that to me later that that was tough on my children. But it was also very valuable for my kids. While I was stationed at Camp Lejeune, which is real close to New River where I flew out of, my kids attended elementary school there. And while they were there, several times people showed up at that school to come get kids out of school because their parents, one of them had died or was badly hurt. You could also go at Camp Lejeune to a beach called Onslow Beach, where you can kind of vacation. There's a few little small, austere beach houses there. And we would take our kids there, and you would see Marines that were rehabbing. Marines without arms, without legs, and they were there with their families. And I will tell you, more often than not, though, they had a smile on their face. And my kids saw that. They've never, ever forgotten that. And I think it was very important for them. In closing, I would like to say that I'm also a Marine that's not without regrets. When I got out of the Marine Corps in 2010, so a couple years later, I'm busy with work, going to school at night, getting my MBA, and I had a friend, not extremely close, but someone I had taught in the schoolhouse how to be a Ford air controller. His name is Chris Rader, and Chris was killed over in Afghanistan. Chris was a Harrier pilot. He was actually the commanding officer of the squadron. It was September of 2012, I think September 17th, Fob Bastion was attacked. And Chris had recently, hours before, had just come back from a mission, and they were still sitting around the ready room, and they were debriefing, and the airfield was attacked. Chris was able to go to the barracks, wake his Marines up, grab his weapon, and went directly to the flight line to investigate and to actually get into the fight. Well, Chris was killed. Subsequent to that, there was a memorial service for Chris up at Arlington. And another thing I should tell you about Chris was the kind of guy, if you met him, he would introduce himself as, "I'm just another dumb Marine." Well, let me tell you, that's code for, "I'm really, really smart. And you better be careful when you're dealing with me, because you're going to lose, especially in a car game." But Chris had a civil engineering degree from Carnegie Mellon. He was no joke. But anyways, Chris had a memorial service up at Arlington, and I did not go. I gave myself several excuses. I'm too busy at work. I just started a new job. I got a family. I'm going to school at night. And you know what? It'd be expensive to fly up to DC and back for 3 or 4 days. I regret that every day. Since then, I've tried to do better. I've traveled to the Naval Academy to see some friends retire. I've gotten back up to Camp Lejeune for some changes of command, and it's made all the difference in my life. That leads into my challenge. That if you have a chance between this Wednesday and this weekend Saturday on Veterans Day, if you can reach out and call a friend, doesn't have to be a veteran, maybe call a family member, call someone that you haven't talked to in a while and just say hello. I promise you that I will do it. I give you my word. Because reaching out and getting back in touch with your friends in any community, you always get more out of it than you give. That's what I have found in the last 7 years since I've been outside of the United States Marine Corps. So if you can do that, I think that you'll find it very, very rewarding. My career in the United States Marine Corps and in the military in general was extremely rewarding. I got the chance to really serve and live with some fantastic young people. We heard Jim up here earlier giving a very personal experience. And before even coming to Murrells Inlet and before we saw the series on Vietnam on PBS, I had thought a lot about our Vietnam veterans because I really know that my generation has benefited greatly from their service and the way in which they were treated. We've been treated almost over the top. Everyone is very thankful and gracious to us. And I think that's because of their service. You should also know that the military gets better every year. Our young people are fantastic. And as I go back to some of these retirement ceremonies or changes of command, the men and women I see are a heck of a lot better than I was when I was in 7 years ago. And that warms my heart. They take it serious. And they do it because they share hardship. And by sharing hardship, they know exactly what they're fighting for. A lot has been made of the flag and the national anthem and things of that sort. But my experience has been when you're overseas and things are difficult, what you really, really want is you want that person on your left or your right to be proud of you. And if something bad happens, you want your family to have been proud of you. Your mother, your father, your wife, your kids, and your community. That's really, really what you want. In closing, I'd like to say God bless you. God bless all our veterans, your community, and God bless America. Semper Fidelis.
Let us pray. Almighty and gracious God, you are the resurrected one, bringing order out of chaos while shining light into the darkness. In your presence we discover hope during desperate times and comfort during seasons of turmoil. You are the faithful one, O God, the great restorer of our souls. And on this day we offer our thanks and praise to you for raising up men and women who willingly place themselves in harm's way so that all might enjoy the peace that comes from order. These courageous individuals have experienced the demands of the military, have shouldered the responsibility of standing in the gap, and have known the crippling weight of war. Into your loving care we place them. Equip and inspire your church here at Belin Memorial and around this nation to be the places where those who are struggling might find healing and peace of mind. And while we honor those who have served, we are ever mindful of the people serving this day to preserve our freedom and liberties. Protect them, surround them with your mercies, and bring them home safely. Bless us now, O God, as we receive this food, and bless those that have prepared it for us. Through Christ Jesus, O Lord.